Hey everybody, I'm Mike Westergren and welcome back to another episode of Traffic Jam. Before we kick things off, I want to encourage you to go to the Traffic Club of Chicago's website and check out our events page because we have a lot of great events going on this year and we hope to see you at some of them. Today our special guest is Matt DiPilato. He serves as the president of the Traffic Club of Chicago and vice president of commercial strategy and sales at Arka Express, a carrier who specializes in van and truckload services. With a degree in finance from the University of Montana and a master in business from the University of Illinois, Matt is recognized for his expertise in sales, growth initiatives, marketing, and service line development within the Chicagoland area. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Really appreciate it. As we start off 2024, I think it's always nice to see who the new face, I guess, is of the organization, and what better way to do it than have a podcast on Traffic Jam.
Perfect. Let them all know who you are, and that's what we're here to figure out today. Who is Matt DiPilato? So let's start from the beginning. How'd you get your start in transportation logistics, Matt?
So I always felt that I really wanted to get into this industry, even as a young kid, just totally fascinated by trucks, trains, planes, everything with an engine, a machine. And as I worked my way through the University of Montana, where I earned a finance degree, I interned with C.H. Robinson, where I really got my first taste of what the industry was all about. From a business perspective, growing up in high school, I drove forklifts for a number of years and loaded containers and LTL carriers, and really learned about the pick and pack process, what that is of, for a warehouse side. But I really just wanted to start somewhere, and just was able to get an internship, and the rest really took care of itself from there.
What was it like getting an internship with C.H. Robinson? Is that typically like a lotto? Is it hard to get in?
Ironically, my grandfather, who was a past president, George Bima, who's no longer with us, he had made a number of connections with that organization through the Traffic Club of Chicago. So when I was a junior, trying to figure out what to do next, part of the responsibilities to earn my degree was to have an internship somewhere. So I reached out, being that I was in Minnesota. He knew about C.H. Robinson and had some dealings with them, and was able to at least connect me with someone who helped me interview for that role. And then when I officially got the role, it was really a great learning for me to kind of understand what logistics, transportation, supply chain was all about. And then that really catapulted me towards wanting to do it once I got my degree.
And what was it like? What they make you do at C.H. Robinson during your internship?
So I'll never forget interviewing, just being really enthusiastic and excited just to have an opportunity. Walked in, it was an office environment, phones, computers, a lot of energy, noise, activity happening. But when I got the internship, what my responsibility was to cover trucks in the Midwest region, for account managers. So I would essentially dial for diesel. My first day, they put me at a computer and they said, here's a phone. And pretty much what they told me to do was start using it by going through directories of trucking companies in the regions of the freight that I was covering, and trying to understand if they had a capacity available for us to cover. And then the next step would be to just negotiate those rates based on whatever budget we had for those specific shipments. So it was really a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of, here's an activity, go out and do it. And then when you trip, fall, and make mistakes, get up, and we're going to tell you how not to do that again. So in that internship, I think that was the really cool part was, they didn't give you a whole lot of, I want to say, structure. There was structure there, of course, but they really gave you the opportunity to either succeed or fail. And I'm sure from the beginning it was a test. It's to weed out those they believe could grow within the organization and those that they felt maybe there was other things out there that would be better off or better suited for that person.
Very cool. And when was that? So you've been in the industry for how long now?
So I graduated about the worst time. So I'm getting my finance degree, and through my the finance school, we're learning about, the market collapsing. Bear Stearns and the Lehman Brothers had just gone out of business, which were very old financial institutions. And I graduated May of 2009, and if you remember, the economy really collapsed and the stock market crashed into the ground around the end of 2008. And so at that time, I had been offered a position with C.H. Robinson to work full time, but days before graduation, I got a call from the general manager who was hiring me, and he said, "Matt, we're in a hiring freeze for the first time, so we're not able to really take you on." And so I had to really wait. And, that was one of the best things, to tell you the truth, that happened to me, because I really wanted the position full time at C.H. Robinson, and I didn't have plans to really do another career. And while I was finishing my last month of school, I had a friend whose friend ran an insurance agency, and it was a rather large insurance agency. And because I was in Montana, they were trying to develop that territory. Long story short is I helped open up an insurance office out there, where I was, doing the hard sales, learning scripts. I actually had an assistant and hired about 10 people while I was selling and opening up this office. And what I can tell you from that experience over that 6 month period is I learned a lot. I developed some great sales techniques, but I really understood that insurance was not my field of choice, that it was really difficult for me to be passionate about that vertical specifically for me in my career. And so thankfully, the freight gods came calling, I believe around October of that year in 2009, and said, things have gotten better. We'd like to take you on board. And I remember what they offered me for a salary, and I won't share it here, but it was just slightly above what I believe minimum wage was. But I was excited for the opportunity, just to start somewhere and be passionate about something that I felt that I could have a long-term career in, which, if you look at where I am today, I think part of that and the enthusiasm, the energy comes from, I don't believe that every day I show up to work, I believe that I am in a career where I love what I do. And it just makes each day better than someone who's just here to collect a check or was forced into this industry because they needed a job per se.
Yeah, everybody knows somebody like that, but no, that's a wonderful background. So about 14, 15 years or so you've been in the industry. So what is it that keeps you motivated to keep doing what you're doing after all these years in the industry?
I think it's number one, it's the people. Um, I love the fact that in our industry, we get to touch so many different businesses, so many different processes, suppliers, vendors alike. And why it drives me is you get to continuously learn. I When I achieve something, I want to do something after that. I don't want to just be complacent. And I think that the people in this industry that I've met, and with all these different various businesses, excite me. It's really a wonderful opportunity to understand what people are trying to do and accomplish in a variety of different environments. And to me, the exploration with being for us specifically, I help lead a truckload organization with assets. We get to touch verticals such as paper and plastic, food and beverage, retail, automotive, building, construction products, and so on. And then when you kind of peel back the onion, of these different businesses, you learn the people that drive those things and give that enthusiasm and excitement behind what they do. It's just, for me, I like that part of it. I would say it's the people.
So you meet some pretty good people along the way, right? Are there any
Absolutely.
people that are worth of noting, some that you would be happy to share here on this public platform?
Yeah, absolutely. We all have had leaders and bosses, managers along the way. Sometimes we are put into a position where we have no choice but to deal with those individuals, whether it's good or bad. But for me, fortunately, I was really, really lucky that when I first started at C.H. Robinson back in officially 2009 as a full-time employee, our general manager was Chris Martinson. And I believe he's no longer with the organization. And he had a wonderfully long, successful career there. He was the first leader of the office that I joined. And because of his leadership, I was able to learn a lot of good practices. We had a group of about 100 people. And as I progressed throughout C.H. Robinson, one of my roles, I got to travel to about 40 different C.H. Robinson offices of about 150 at that time.
Wow.
And I got to understand, the office of 10 people to the office of 2,000 people and what each of those leaders did to motivate and encourage and develop and so on and so forth. What I found out was that Chris had done me a lot of favors just by being a good leader. He cared about his people. There was always energy, positive energy in the office. Days were long, days were tough, but I don't think it ever felt like that because he was able to bring those 100 people together and have them point in the same direction. And although that was one of the first couple years of my career, I've yet to see in that large of a capacity the camaraderie that was built up in those first few years of my career. Even within the organization that I'm at today, we are constantly striving to connect the teams, whether it's from an individual level, from a team level, or even a systems level. All of these things are equally as important. And that was one of the original um, glimpses into that I've experienced. And so throughout my career, it makes it easier for me to recognize what I would consider to be good leadership and what I would consider to be maybe different viewpoints of leadership. And for me, that that has helped me understand where I need to be or what I need to do to help motivate my team and energize the team to do things that we collectively need to accomplish as an organization.
Naturally, that's what good leaders do, is bring the best out in you, right?
Absolutely.
You mentioned earlier, multiple verticals and learning a lot about different industries. Do you prefer any verticals over any others? Is there one that's maybe your favorite?
I think my favorite vertical is the vertical that I'm not playing in, if that makes any sense. And I would say that because I always want to learn more. I mean, the retail sector, the food and beverage, the paper and plastics. I think for truckload carriers, those are pretty common arenas that we play in. The things that really I've been more focused on recently are the healthcare and the medical fields, government contracting, automotive, the final mile, the outsourced type of supply chain needs. So to answer the question, it changes quite frequently. And I think for me right now, if you were to pin me up against the wall and say, what's the most interesting, fascinating, which one do you enjoy the most? It would probably have to be the one that I'm not working on. So I guess I'll let you choose that for yourself.
It's a good answer. So tell me about your business. I mean, how are you and Arka Express adding value to the supply chain?
So I ended up at Arka really by chance. Uh, I was working for Circle Logistics. I had just left Schneider National and COVID hit. And I was one of the newer hires on, and they bumped up against some challenges. Um, and so I was part of a layoff. And so I'm sitting here. I was earning my degree, my master's at the University of Illinois. And fortunately, I had something to focus my time on during this period of unemployment. But I got a call out of the blue during that time from Arka Express. They were looking for someone to help with their sales. So I took the call. And ironically, to back up, in 2009, my first year at CH Robinson, I was covering the Northeast region as a carrier rep. And Arca Express was a fairly new carrier. They had been in business for about 2 years at that time. They had about 50 trucks, brand new trucks. And I was actually the rep that was managing that account. And ironically, in 2009, I made a trip from Minneapolis to Chicago to visit that carrier, and I met the owner and the staff, and I saw their building and their lot and everything, and it was really cool. So when I got the call, fast forward to 2020, I was like, absolutely, I'd love to come in there and just see what's going on, because they don't know who I am, but I know who they are, and I'd like to see the progress. And when I arrived to Arca Express, it was a completely different company than what I had saw 11 years prior. They had a big building. They had changed the colors of the trucks, all still brand new trucks. The fleet was about 300 trucks strong, and they were onto something. I interviewed with our owner, who I report to currently, and I was impressed by what they had built in such a short period of time, and that's why I signed on. And when I arrived here with a 300 truck fleet, the value in the marketplace that we were offering at that time was, we had our own assets, we have new equipment, we service truckload destinations east of the Mississippi, in the major markets such as Chicago, Atlanta, and the New Jersey, Philadelphia area. And if you fast forward today, we are now 629 trucks. At the time, we had about 800 trailers when I joined. We have 1,500 trailers now. And the value that we now offer to the marketplace is similar in that respect, except we offer a lot more capacity. So customers who have grown with us now can access larger driver bases. Our biggest thing is we want to deliver a quality driver on a quality truck at a cost-effective price in the regions that we operate. And we want to provide drop trailer capabilities to those who have supply chains that require that. So in a nutshell, that's really what we do today. It's really set up in a local, regional, and over-the-road capacity in those major markets that I listed as today. But the future value will be in other markets that, as we grow, we will develop further.
Okay. So where do you guys plan on expanding next? I heard, Northeast and obviously the Midwest, 629 trucks. I think you said 1,500 trailers, or maybe I just know that. But where's the next big step going to be for you guys? Where's your focus going to be in growing?
Yeah, so it's really exciting for us. We've done a few things in the last few years that have really differentiated us from where we were a few years back. We've taken on some outsourced customers. We turned our portfolio of customers from a transactional model to a primarily contractually driven model. And that has allowed us to stabilize the business for the future, which has allowed us to access other markets such as Texas, such as the Carolinas, Florida, Tennessee. Those are the areas that we've been developing the most recently. And the reason why we were able to do that is because we had brought on some more contractual business that stabilized things for us, where we could hire the right drivers into those areas. We could establish drop pools in those areas where we knew that we wouldn't always be taking maybe a backhaul lane or not having the equipment there to maneuver certain things that ultimately, if you don't have any footprint in those areas, it's the cost is driven up significantly. So with that being said, and having that contractual business, those are the markets that we've been slowly dipping into and then growing it out. And then once we have a business case to develop another terminal, that's the next step. So we haven't picked out exactly where we're building our next terminal, but we do have plans to build 2, 3 more of them in the future. And that's going to be based on those densities and the drivers and things of that nature.
Naturally. One of the questions I like to ask people are on the podcast is, what are one of the biggest challenges that you've experienced in your career in transportation and logistics, and what did you learn from it?
I think the biggest thing, we talked a little bit about it early on, was the people involved and the leaders that you have are very important for me specifically. I'm a person where the team around me has to be cohesive enough where, you can have friction, but too much friction drives a lesser result or sometimes can hinder the productivity of the individuals on those teams. And so I've had, I think to my count, 22 or 23 different bosses since I started in this industry. And the reason why I know that is because I know the ones that I really worked well with and the ones that I didn't necessarily see eye to eye on it with. And so I think the biggest challenges that I faced for me was having a leader that I didn't see eye to eye with. A few times in my career, I was still very new when I didn't see eye to eye with my leader. So I didn't have the maturity to really handle the situations well. But as I grew older, I also had some of those leaders that I didn't work well with. And those were some of the best learning experiences that I've ever had. To think of one specifically, I had a leader where I just felt like I could not please that person no matter what I did. And I genuinely tried my best to represent myself and the organization to the best of the abilities I knew how. And at that time, I didn't have a lot of mentorship within that organization or anyone that I could turn to ask for really genuine help. But what I also knew while I was dealing with this scenario was that I couldn't just give up. I couldn't just throw in the towel and say, you know what, I don't like this leader and the way that things are working in this working environment. I should just quit and move on. I wasn't going to do that. What I did for myself is I gave myself a timeline, and what that timeline was, it was a certain amount of years. I said, you have to deal with it. Try your best to work through it and do the job you have to do. And at a certain period of time, if you've done everything you can do and you feel good about the decisions that you've made, and you just feel like it's not something that you can deal with anymore, move on. And that's what I did, is I just put a target date out there and worked my hardest to try to get it to where I thought it could be. And when push came to shove, it was a position for me where I was starting not to love the industry that I was in. And I knew that was an impact on me. And that's when I said, okay, it's time for change. I did what I could. I put up, I shouldn't say put up, I tried my best to deal with the circumstances for as long as I could. And it just didn't work out. And I think sometimes what I see from a lot of people is they stay in those roles, hoping things will change, hoping they get a new leader, hoping that the company will change. And often it doesn't. And so you're just, I think in some ways, after you've kind of done your best to deal with a hard situation, learn from it, and then when you hit that wall, to just move on to something new and try something different. And for me personally, it's been the best thing for me, is that that experience was one of the although it was one of the worst I had, ended up being one of the best, because I came out of it knowing what I don't want in that next career, how my efforts should be or shouldn't be handled, and what's important based on, my expectations and grades of where I should be.
Excellent. And now 180. So what was some of your biggest accomplishments?
I would have to say just being in the role that I am at the Traffic Club of Chicago. The Traffic Club of Chicago, it goes without saying, is one of the most prestigious and, in my opinion, well-run clubs in all of North America. My barometer of that is participating in a number of other traffic clubs events and working with them over the past decade through the Traffic Club of Chicago to hear the feedback that we receive. It's not a secret the club's 118 years old, and to my knowledge, I'm one of the youngest leaders of the Traffic Club of Chicago. And to me, that is really important because it's not that I'm the youngest to do it. It's I want to bridge the gap between the legacy generation that has built such an amazing club to the next generation of transportation professionals that come through the organization. It's been a long time, at least since I've arrived roughly 10 years ago to the Traffic Club of Chicago, that there was this bridge between the legacy people and the youngest people in our industry. And I felt like with the right people around me, which we have, Tom Tisa, Jason Olinger were really at the start of this. My grandfather died in 2013 when I moved to Chicago, and he was the president in 1995, which was one of their most impactful years, we'll say, or one of the biggest years that they've ever had, is when my grandfather was in charge of the club. And he was so close to his heart. And so when I came to the club after moving here and seeing what it was, I was kind of questioning, what has this club become, or what is this club? Because I felt like an outsider here. I felt like I didn't have too many people that I could confide in. And that's when Jason Olinger and Tom Tisa pulled me aside and said, let's get this thing going. Let's put you in charge of young professionals. Let's get you on the board of directors. And at the time, I didn't know what any of those things were. I just knew that I had people that were going to support me. And that gave me the confidence to say, you know what, let's do this. Let's give this a shot. Let's develop some skills that I don't have in my 9-to-5 job that I could get somewhere else, and also meet unbelievably respectful people that you want to be around. So that's kind of how everything started with me. And that's something that I'm really proud of, is that, I work through just being a member, to being on a committee, to getting elected to the board, to starting the young professionals, to serving my term as long as I could on the board, to being put into position on the executive board, and then being, secretary, treasurer, VP, and now president. It's not just being the president, it's the path that got me here that I'm proud of. And to see what it was 10 years ago when I got here as a 26-year-old to where it is now 10 years later is awesome. So that's my most proud moment, I would say, currently.
It's awesome. There's a lot to be proud of. I knew your grandfather, and he was one of the nicest guys I ever met back when I started with the club in 2007. So I knew him for a few years. So fast forwarding to the future, what are you looking forward to the most?
I'm looking forward to a lot of things, actually, both professionally, personally. From a professional standpoint, the growth of the club. There's a new reinvigorated enthusiasm within the Traffic Club of Chicago. And if you haven't been around for it and you're just getting to know us, you're in for a treat. There's been a lot of rebuilding that's been taking place, from everything with rewriting the bylaws to developing new marketing strategies to reinforcing the committees that we've established, to making better educational events for the future, to bridging the gap between the different generations that we have. I mean, there is so much to look forward to within the Traffic Club, and professionally with Arka Express. I'm excited for our future. future. We have a bunch of new portfolio services that we're going to start. The company continues to grow in an operating environment that for most has been really challenging. And I'm not saying it isn't challenging for us, but there's a lot to look forward to within Arka Express's four walls, the Traffic Club's four walls. And then for me personally, I like to learn. So before I die, not a lot of people know this about me, I want to do two things really more. I've, started a family. I have a dog. I got my master's. I have my first child. I've, done all these things. But the last two things that I really want to try to do before I die is I want to learn a musical instrument and I want to speak another language. And those are two huge undertakings. So I'm going to try to do them together, but try to focus on one first and then the other. And so I just started playing the piano recently, and we'll see where that goes. But that's something in my personal life that I'm looking forward to, is learning two new skills, and one being playing the piano. Language, don't know which one I'm going to really take up. I've been thinking, Spanish, because it seems like it's going to be the most practical for business, especially in North America with all the things that are happening with nearshoring in Mexico. But the verdict is still out on that.
And I think I saw you're still working on getting certificates and other things, still growing yourself personally, educating yourself. And what did I see you got a couple of weeks ago from university?
Connected leadership. And so, yeah, I just encourage everyone who's watching this, who made it this far, to hear me blab on and on about these things in my life and what's going on, to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. I can tell you, I've sat next to some of the smartest people on this planet, and they're intimidating, especially knowing who I am. I'm not the sharpest crayon in the box. I'm not the brightest bulb in the tree, and I'm not the smartest person you're ever going to meet. I learned that a long time ago about myself. I learned that if Mike goes and studies for something, it might take him an hour. And for Matt, it might take me 2 hours. And that often happened early in my life, a lot of the time. And what it just developed for me at an early age was hard work. That if I wanted to keep up with everyone, I got to put in probably more work than everyone else just to be equal. And I'm thankful for that, because a lot of the times that's what it comes down to, is effort. And some of the really smart people that I also know, the effort isn't there because it was easier for them all the time. And for anyone out there who thinks that, things are hard and they have to really work hard to do stuff, you're on the right path, because the easier it is, the more bad habits you can develop. And so just take that as a blessing, that when you have to work twice as hard as someone else, you're doing yourself a favor.
Excellent. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. If there's one closing thought you'd like to share with us, what would it be?
If you have your gut feeling telling you should do something, just go do it.
And how should Traffic Jam listeners get a hold of you if they want to shoot you a note and congratulate you, or give you some hate mail, or get in touch with you in general?
Yeah, there's plenty of ways to find me. You can find me on my LinkedIn page. It's Matt DiPilato, and I have my nickname Depo, DEPO, on there. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can email me at Matthew with one T, MATHEW.D as in David, at Arka, ARKA, Express, EXPRESS.com.
Excellent. Well, appreciate it. I look forward to posting this podcast, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Mike, thanks for thinking of me. Appreciate all the work that you do with the education committee. And on behalf of the Traffic Club of Chicago, we appreciate the efforts put in towards developing, creating, and managing Traffic Jam.
Thanks so
much.
Have
a great 2024.
A great 2024, for sure. It's going to be. Thank you so much, Matt.
Awesome. Thank you.
See ya.
If you want to learn more about the Traffic Club, please visit our website at www.traffic-club.org. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Traffic Jam.